Continuing along in Chapter 8 of The Rape of the Mind, this is Part 3. The Witness and His Subjective Testimony. We have seen in recent years a long parade of recanting communists who have testified freely and openly about their pasts. Currently, we have still another kind of parade, the recanting recanters. How are we to know the truth from falsehood in all this morass of conflicting testimony? How are we to prevent ourselves from becoming confused by the contradictory testimony of men and women whose words can influence the course of our nation's actions? How are we to learn to evaluate what they say? Psychologically, how reliable is their testimony, whether friendly or unfriendly? In general, we can say that those who are most vituperative in their statements, are usually the most reliable. Many of them are men and women who in the past adopted a totalitarian ideology out of their own deep sense of inner insecurity. Later there came the moment when they felt that their chosen ideology had failed them. Though it had held their minds relentlessly imprisoned for a long time, at that point they were able to throw off the system completely. This they did through a process of inner rearrangement of old observations and convictions. However, what they shed was merely a particular set of rigid ideological rules. Most of them did not shed, along with these rules, their hidden hatreds and early insecurity. They may have given up the political ideology which offered them defenses and justifications, but they retained their resentments. It is extremely common to find such people seeking immediate sanctuary in some other strictly organized institution. Because they now see things in a different light, old facts and concepts acquire a different significance. Yet all the while the ever-present urge towards self-justification and self-exculpation, which operates in all men, and which in these cases motivated the former allegiance to communism, is at work. Now they must prove their guiltlessness and their loyalty to the newly adopted ideas. Their emotions, now in new garb, are still directed toward the goal of self-justification. In the eyes of the convert, the fresh outlook, this new arrangement of inner demands and of ways of satisfying them, is just as logical and rational as were his former set of expectations and satisfactions. Now he rediscovers several experiences long since past. His former friends become his enemies. Some of them are seen as conspirators, whether they were or not. He himself is unable to distinguish between truth and fantasy, between fact and subjective demand. Consequently, a complete distortion of perceptions and memories may take place. He may misquote his own memories, and this process is for the most part one of which the convert himself is not aware. I remember vividly one example of such behavior during the Second World War. A former Nazi became a courageous member of the anti-Nazi underground. He sought to rectify his past behavior not only by fighting the Nazis but also by spreading all kinds of anxiety-provoking rumors about his former friends, by making them appear more cruel. He thought he could show himself more loyal. Similarly, the denials and misstatements that may be made by the convert before the courts or the congressional committees are often not so much conscious falsehoods as they are products of the new inner arrangements. Every accusation about the convert's past may be twisted by him into a new tool for use in the process of self-justification. Only a few such men have the moral courage to admit that they have made real mistakes in the past. The distance between a white lie and selective forgetting and repressing is often very short. I discovered this for myself while carrying on investigations of resistance members who had been in Nazi hands. I found that it was almost impossible to obtain objective information from them about what they had revealed to the enemy after torture. Reporting upon their enforced betrayal, they immediately colored their stories by white lies and secondary distortions. Depending on their guilt feelings, they either accused themselves too much or found no flaw at all in their behavior. The right to be silent. Out of the action of congressional investigating committees has recently come a serious legal attack on the right to be silent when the giving of information clashes with the conscience of the one on the stand. This attack can become a serious invasion of human privacy and reserve. Understanding the value of the personality and of private conscience is as dangerous to the preservation of democracy as is the threat of totalitarian aggression. We have to realize that it is often difficult for witnesses to make a choice between contempt of Congress and contempt of human qualities. Administrators may conceivably discover a few alleged traitors by compelling witnesses to betray their former friends, but at the same time they compel people to betray friendships. Friendship is one of our most precious human possessions. Any government or agency under the guise of contempt of Congress can force confessions, and information can also force the betrayal of former loyalties. Is this not comparable with what the coercive totalitarians do, and at what cost? We obtain a pseudo-purge resulting from weakness of character and anxiety in the victim. In addition, we violate one of democracy's basic tenets: respect for the strength of man's character. We have always believed that it is better to let 10 guilty men go free than to hang one innocent, in direct opposition to the totalitarian concept that it is better to hang 10 innocent men than to let one guilty man go free. We may punish the guilty with this strategy of compelling a man to speak when his conscience urges him to be silent, but just as surely we break down the innocent by destroying their conscience. Supreme Court Justices Douglas and Black, in their dissenting opinion about the constitutionality of the Immunity Act of 1954, emphasized the right to be silent as a constitutional right given by the Fifth Amendment, a safeguard of personal conscience and personal dignity and freedom of expression as well. It is beyond the power of Congress to compel anyone to confess his crimes even when immunity is assured. The individual's need not to betray his former allegiances even when he has made a mistake in political judgment at an age of less understanding is morally just as important as the need to help the state locate subversives. Let us not forget that betrayal of the community is rooted in self-betrayal. By forcing a man to betray his inner feelings in himself, we actually make it easier for him to betray the larger community at some future date. If the law forces people to betray their inner moral feelings of friendship, even if these feelings are based on juvenile loyalties, then that very law undermines the integrity of the person, and coercion and menticide begin. The conscience of the individual plays an enormous role in the choice between opposition and passive conformity. The law has to protect the individual also against the violation of his personal moral standards. Otherwise, human conscience will lose in the battle between individual conscience and legal power. Moral evaluation starts with the individual and not with the state. And I think this is a good stopping point because I start in another section. This was part 4 of chapter 8, and this will probably take 2 more videos. Alright, Rape of the Mind, that's what we're reading, folks. And we're moving right along. We're about halfway through this book. Won't take much more to finish it up.